Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be talking about an incredibly hot topic in the Final Fantasy XIV community today, and that is the Ungarmax exploit. Now, before I go any further, for those who know what it is, it's already been patched. For those of you who don't know what it is, we'll explain what it is, why the exploit is such a big deal, and Naoki Yoshida's response to the exploit being patched, which we have on the screen right here. So first of all, what is Ungarmax? Ungarmax is the limit break that you are exclusively supposed to only be able to use in squadron dungeons. Now, when you're with your squadrons in the designated dungeons they are allowed to participate in, Ungarmax is a single target limit break that has the additional effect of applying a 50% damage buff to you and the rest of your squadron members. Now, when you just have a bunch of NPCs with you, this is pretty nice. It helps speed up the dungeon a little bit, only costs 1 LB bar, and was something that people always looked at and went, man, wish we could use that in the rest of the game, maybe as like a supporty LB. Well, that brings us to the second point, the exploit. Apparently, when Ungarmax was first implemented, there was footage of somebody using it in the royal city of Rabanastre. There may be other footage of people using it outside of the squadron dungeons as well, but nobody really thought much about it. There's still a lot of information going around that I don't know what's truth and what's not truth. Posts in the forum thread that we have right in front of us right here regarding people who had bug reported it, people who bug reported it without the right template, people who bug reported it with the right template, reports of people using it in Ultimate, reports of people using it even as recently to clear Sigmascape, even before the story itself actually broke, that this was something that was abusable and exploitable. There's still a lot of misinformation, so all I'll say is that supposedly when Squadron Dungeons were implemented, this exploit's been in the game since that point. Now, the big thing with this exploit is all you had to do to use Ungarmax outside of Squadron Dungeons, which is the point of the exploit, is type /AC Ungarmax. That is the text macro command for Ungarmax, and apparently it bypasses the need to be in a dungeon with squadron members. And I'm actually going to talk about the /AC command overall, because believe it or not, that is not the only command that can be abused outside of the intended purpose using the /AC text line. So, people were using it in Ultimate, people were using Ungarmax in Sigmascape, Ultimate, and all sorts of content, but it was kept very much on the down low, according to the various reports. As of a couple of days ago, a footage came up of somebody using it in 06 Savage, and it seemed like they had just heard about it and decided to try it and found out that it did work. And the clip blew up. The Twitch clip just blew up, and everyone was talking about this abusable command, and for the next 24 hours, going into the Duty Finder was just a nightmare. After everybody started talking about it, a bunch of people started trying to use it in-game, in various Duty Finder instances like Expert Dungeons, or even Sigmascape Party Finder, Sigmascape Savage random Party Finders, and everyone was really afraid. People didn't know what kind of action would be taken against people using it deliberately. People didn't know how if it was intentional. Come on, you know that shit's not intentional. Don't give me that excuse. And it was just a huge thing. Basically, within 48 hours, it was patched. It is now no longer a thing you can do, so the abuse is completely ended. And it was good to see such a swift reaction for it, even though, based on the fact that there are some sources on bug reports from months ago, that the information never actually made it to the dev team in the first place. So, after it was patched, Naoki Yoshida went to the forums, the Japanese forums, and posted, and this is the translated English forums from, let's see, who posted this? From, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this, Iako Kisu, one of the moderators, or one of the community reps over on the forums, and it says this: "This is Naoki Yoshida, producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV. Allow me to provide updates on the current situation here. There's various other information on external websites that is causing confusion, but it was in fact late last night, Japanese time, that the development team, myself included, learned of this bug in the same way as many others did. Regardless of how and why, at the same time as confirming the truth of what is written on other websites, we consider this a highly urgent bug and made preparations to fix it promptly. That was what the emergency maintenance earlier was for. Apologies that the information as to why was delayed. The bug has been fixed, and the action is no longer usable in content other than what it is meant for. We are currently continuing to communicate with the NA and EU teams as there is an issue with time difference, but are proceeding accordingly to confirm the below points. 1. Whether or not the comment written on the external website reporting that, quote, it was reported to the GM team 4 months ago, unquote, is true or not. They're still trying to determine that. 2, if it was, then why was the issue not reported accordingly back then? And 3, identify the amount of characters that are, quote, assumed to have intentionally used, unquote, this action for incorrect means. The bug that has now been fixed could have occurred accidentally by the incorrect use of a macro that had been in place for the standard use of the action in the same exact conditions if they were met by chance. Therefore, we will be careful in our decision as to who used it deliberately. In order for the research into this to be done, keeping in mind the issue and time difference, we ask for your time and patience on this. We will be in touch upon gathering and summing up the necessary information, including what needs to be done going forward to prevent this issue occurring again. We sincerely apologize for this bug and the time taken to fix it. Thank you for your patience until we send the next notification on this matter. So they patched it and openly acknowledged that they are investigating individuals who are assumed to have intentionally used it. For me, there's one important thing in here that I've seen not enough people talking about. When we report things into GMs, it's very often a meme that information is completely worthless. We so very rarely see when bots or hackers are ever reported into the GM team that those players are accordingly punished. And I mean, you could report them, maybe there's another location to report them on the forums. I don't frequent the online forums all too much, but it seems like there's a breakdown in communication between when a GM gets a report about a hack, about a bug, about a specific player, versus the dev team actually being made aware of said thing and making preparations to counter and or suppress any sort of issue with the game itself. Now, I'm not going to call out the GMs here in particular. The GMs are given very limited power. GM isn't a developer. A GM is somebody who acts as customer service, and the amount of things they can do as an individual is usually very limited. But it's always felt like there was just nothing they could do about so many various functions or problems in the game. Between seeing a bunch of bots teleporting around hitting mining points, or watching a player speed hack through a PvP match, or maybe boosting your spell speed artificially through a third-party program. Any of these things feels like they've gone, for the most part, unpunished, and even though said things have been reported on quite frequently. Now, I'm not going to go too much deeper on commenting on that, but for me, the biggest takeaway here is proceeding accordingly to making sure that that communication, why was it not reported accordingly back then? Was it at the behest of the player? Did the player not follow the right reporting format or something along those lines? Or was it an issue where they determined it wasn't widely used, or maybe just not replicatable, and therefore couldn't be identified as something that should be escalated to the next step? Either way, it just feels like there's something missing in terms of the communication between these two departments. And they're two departments that, as of right now, need to be working together very closely to ensure that not only is this problem resolved correctly, but all future problems be resolved correctly as well. I don't know what it's going to take, and the GMs, they have to put up with a ton of stuff, so I'm not just going to point the fingers right at them. I feel like this is not the first time we've seen this sort of communication lapse between the different teams in the Final Fantasy XIV, within the Final Fantasy XIV teams overall. We actually even saw that recently with 4.2, talking about how due to the massive amount of features that were being added in 4.2, that the QA wasn't quite up to where it belonged. And that can definitely be attributed to A, the tight time schedule, and B, communication. So it's not the first time that some sort of collaboration between different aspects of the game, developers and or otherwise, has not come together. I'm hoping that with this surfacing, that is going to be something they look to rectify immediately. Because I'm tired of going into any of my PvP matches and it being a team of half bots versus another team of a quarter bots. Or I'm sick and tired of seeing things posted on Reddit about a spell speed hack, and then, you know what, 2 weeks later, a different video of the same person, then another 2 weeks later of the same person, and just nothing. I understand they can't take sources from outside the game, otherwise everyone using ACT would get banned on pretty much everything, but still, there has to be some way to investigate this. Even if you can't use that as proof, there should be some sort of tool for them to access the kind of information they need to take action against these sorts of players. You can be someone who just played in the same game as them. You don't have to have video footage of them. Seeing that they're doing what they're doing is not rocket scientist. Neither is the movement speed hacking in the Feast, which we've seen for such a long time now. These things are not things that even need visual proof. You can just tell based on regurgitating the actions, every movement he pressed, how long it was held down for, distance travel. The metrics have to be in the game. I can't accept that the metrics to track these things are not in the game. I just can't. Maybe it's true, but I just can't accept it. So, that's the big thing with Ungarmax. I would like to point out one other thing. Ungarmax is not the only command that you can abuse using /AC. There's another command, and I make this public at the risk of people, again, using it, but I saw people shouting it in Rhalgr's Reaching Gilgamesh, and that's the only reason I know about it. Apparently, any command in the game that uses /AC is available regardless of location. As long as it's an area in the game where /AC is viable to use, then it can be used. That's why Ungarmax works, because /AC is a global command for any location in the game that has access to that macro line. On top of that, or text line, or command line, I guess you should say. So with that in mind, there's another command that uses /AC that shouldn't be usable outside of its intended location, and that is warp. /AC warp, or /AC space warp, is a similar thing to Ungarmax, where in Rival Wings, or I believe in PvP in general, might just be Rival Wings, but when you use return, it instead becomes the warp feature, and it sends you back to the beginning of the instance. When you use /AC warp outside of Rival Wings, when you type the command, it basically acts as a no cooldown return for your character. Now, obviously, that's not quite the same as providing a limit break that gives everyone a 50% damage buff, which, by the way, could then be extended by the Astrologian. But it's something. It's something to look at, because if the problem is not just with Ungarmax, and the problem is with the /AC command, then they need to look at that command and find countermeasures to make sure anything that uses /AC is not usable anywhere. Maybe you need a separate command for it. Maybe it needs to be its own text command that is just completely separate from that. I tried it with PvP actions, those don't work. Those are actually designated with /PvP AC, which is only accessible in PvP areas. So why isn't warp just a PvP AC? You know what I mean? I just don't want to see this happen again. And the identification that it's a problem with the /AC command, and that even after fixing Ungarmax, the warp command still is usable at this point, is something I feel needs to be highlighted. I am going to, since I'm already on the forums, write a bug report on it. I don't care how annoying the template is. I'm going to write a bug report on it, because we need to identify these things and actually report them and make sure we go through the right avenues. Can't always blow up on Reddit or YouTube or something like that. Do people, then the last point I guess to hit on, do people deserve to be banned for using Ungarmax? I think that Yoshida is showing the same caution. Not everyone. People who are trying to abuse it in secret in order to get higher parses or to clear content easier, I think that's deserving. I think you should know and claim responsibility for deliberately using it outside of its intended purpose. And I don't mean someone who found out about it after this went public. Anyone who found out about it and a friend went, yo, did you hear about this? And they go, oh, let me try it in the next instance. Don't ban them. They're fun. Like, what are you going to do? Like, everyone wants to know if it's a real thing if they haven't seen it themselves, or they want to know that, hey, is this actually a replicatable bug? That's just human curiosity. I'm talking about the people that, if this has actually been used in secret for months and months and months after it was posted on Reddit, and supposedly the bug reports were made months ago, those are the people you need to be looking at. There are also the cases where, as he names, somebody might have an Ungarmax macro for whatever reason, because you're in a squadron dungeon, no one else can see your macro. But still, it's a case where you might have had it, pressed it by accident, and in a different piece of content, and noticed that it worked. So you do have to play cautiously, but if you were using it in secret, I am of the belief that you're exploiting a system, you're trying to hide that you're exploiting this and benefiting from it you're trying to benefit from it in secret, then yeah, it's probably something that you're going to get the ban hammer for. But I wouldn't be worried. I really hope they don't just ban people who went into the duty finder the day this went public and saw, and people were just using it because they had heard about it. I really hope, A, those people who were just trying it because they heard about it don't get banned, and B, the people who were adjacent to them in those same instances don't get banned. That would be a disaster. Let's be honest. That wouldn't even be something that we could understand. That would be a PR and marketing disaster. That would be just, I don't know how to describe it. It wouldn't be the nail in the coffin, but it would, it maybe the coffin wouldn't be closed all the way, but the amount of backtracking they'd have to do if it came down to that would just be substantial. And so he seems to want to take it cautiously. He seems to want to treat the situation carefully. Good. I'm a fan of that. But I wanted to make a video on this because it is not a topic that should be taken lightly. It is something that we should be discussing here on the channel and in other areas of the game. We want to make sure our game doesn't have cheaters and botters and all that stuff. You're never going to defeat them all together. But when we report these things, we want them taken care of. So please, if you see someone doing something shady, as annoying as it can be, follow the template there. Call the GM. Do whatever. And don't be silent about it. Tell your friends about it. If they see it, tell them about it. Tell anyone you see that sees problems like this, report it. Don't just be like, oh, they won't do anything. Just do it. All right? Do it in as many avenues as humanly possible. And hopefully with whatever they fix here, it'll actually amount to something. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the most major points here. Please discuss it in the comment section below. And I will see all you fine ladies and gentlemen in the next video. Until then, take care.